Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Efrvsnt's Leadership Podcast. My name is Lisa Wilson. I am the CEO here at Efrvsnt. Today, I am joined by Reza Zadeh. He is the Denver Broncos team chaplain. Reza, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you.
Lisa, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this conversation and sure appreciate you giving me an opportunity to share and to dig into leadership a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. We had the unique opportunity to meet up at a leadership tag up for a company that we both are associated with. So it was really fun and it was really inspirational, the stories that you had to tell. So I'm really looking forward to today's interview.
Well, thanks. So am I.
Yeah. Why don't we just get started and tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, your background, and what got you to the role that you're in now with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely. So I took kind of a weird role, a weird path. I guess all of us have kind of an interesting, different path. Take you way back, I was not born in this country. I was born in Iran, and so I'm full-blooded Iranian. We came to the United States when I was young, bounced around a little bit, landed in Southern California. It's really where I grew up in South Orange County area, and ended up kind of growing up in the American culture and just learning what that was all about, assimilating to American culture. Played football in high school and went to junior college for about a year and a half, and then found myself playing football in college in Colorado at Colorado State University. And I would say at CSU is really where my life changed, not just, getting my education or, achieving this dream of playing college football. But, for me, my faith is a big part of who I am and how I lead, and converted from Islam to Christianity at that point in college. And so it kind of just put me on this path of just living life differently. I always wanted to be a college football coach. That was my dream, was to coach college football. So after I was done playing, I became a graduate assistant coach, so I did that for 2 years at CSU here in Fort Collins. And quickly, over those 2 years, I found myself I was gravitating towards really wanting to mentor the players, get to know them, understand who they were, just help them navigate. Because when you come into a environment like college athletics, 17, 18 years old, you're thrust on a team of 125 other people from around the country. And then you graduate 5 years later and you're a completely different person. I love that process of watching athletes come in, maturing through college and then leaving. So quickly found myself saying, hey, I like football, but I'm really sick of it, and really like mentoring the players more. And so found myself in ministry, and was working at a church here locally as a college pastor, doing the same thing, mentoring, coming alongside 20-somethings, young adults, coming alongside of them in their college years. They graduate, looking for careers, helping them navigate what does that look like. And, they meet someone, get married. So my wife and I got into a lot of pre-marriage counseling and officiating weddings. And so was in the local church as a pastor for 12 years. We ended up starting a church. We led one, my wife and I, here in a local community. And then about 6 years ago, just kind of had this thing in our gut that it was like a golf ball in my gut, and it ended up growing into like a basketball, where I just knew that it was time. I had to make a change. There was just something in me that wanted to change. So we resigned from that, had no clue what we were going to do, stepped into this environment called a life plan with somebody, and discovered that really serving athletes is kind of what we want to do. And so we stepped into this organization called Athletes in Action, which is an international sports organization. And so I oversee the Front Range of Colorado, up and down the mountains is called the Front Range, from Wyoming all the way down to New Mexico. So I oversee Athletes in Action from University of Wyoming, which is in Cheyenne in southern Wyoming, all the way down to the Denver area. So there's about 6 or 7 college campuses where we work with the athletes there, and I oversee the staff that's on those campuses. And then also work with some Olympic athletes that are down in Colorado Springs. And then 4 years ago, we were invited to serve as the Broncos team chaplains. And so my wife does that alongside of me, working with the women of the organization. Mostly the wives of the players is who she interacts with. So that's kind of the path that we took to find ourselves in this place where we're serving this organization.
Wow, what a fascinating story. You just came all the way up from college level to even outside of football at this point, which is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does a team chaplain do exactly? So are you, is it more of a one-on-one, or is it an organizational thing? Is it tied in with HR? What exactly do you do?
Yeah, so actually, I am not officially a part of the organization. Different organizations, different teams kind of run their chaplaincy a little bit different. There are some teams in the NFL where the owner or the general manager or the front office, they feel like, hey, we want a chaplain on staff. They're a part of who we are. And then there's organizations like ours where I'm not on staff with the Denver Broncos. I'm on staff with this outside organization, and I volunteer with the Broncos. And so really, it's funny because people ask me, hey, do you know so-and-so in the organization? Do you know so-and-so? And I don't know anybody. I really just interact with the players and coaches. I come in, I do my thing a couple times a week. I'm interacting with players, and then I kind of leave. And so I don't know all the ins and outs of what happens in the front office or marketing or anything like that. To be honest, I stay out of all of that.
Mm.
And I would say one of my roles is to take off my fan hat, that I'm not a fan of the team, but I'm a fan of the players personally, not even how they perform on the field, as we kind of find ourselves coming alongside of them. And so I'm not connected with, the HR department or anything like that. I think most of them would know me. They'd recognize me because here's this, weird guy from the outside coming in, hanging out in the cafeteria, talking to players in the locker room. And so they see me around, but I'm not officially a part of the organization in any way.
So that has to make it easier than some of the politics, I guess, for lack of a better term, within the organization. So you are able to just see the players in a vacuum in those conversations.
Absolutely. And I would say the fact that I'm not a part of the organization is a good thing. Not that some of our chaplains that are connected to the organization, that's bad per se. We just all have different roles. For example, here's just a great example. When a player is going through something personally, I'm typically, there connecting with them. Now, not all the players, interact with me because not all of them have a faith background. But most of them feel safe, talking to me. One, because, I am kind of representing this faith that most of them would profess. But secondly, I'm an outside perspective for them. So if they have something happening with a teammate or with a coach or with the front office or something, I'm safe because, first of all, I'm not paid by the organization. And so I don't have to, I'm not a go-between. So they know the organization's not going to get inside information from me. And so I think I'm very safe for the players, and them knowing that I'm not paid by the organization or not on staff. We are part of a nonprofit, so we raise funds just like a normal nonprofit would raise funds. And that's where our salary and living expenses come from, is kind of us raising that money. So that gives a level of confidentiality with the players.
Yeah, so you're able to keep that player chaplain confidentiality,
absolutely.
which I'm sure opens up everything. That kind of ties into, you mentioned the faith-based approach. How do you have your own belief system, and there's going to be players that have different outside belief systems.
Absolutely.
How are you able to facilitate working with them without having too much of your belief system in place, being able to meet them where they are?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, there's just some people that are just have this wall up because they've hurt in the past from a church or a pastor or something. So there are some barriers that need to be overcome. But I think at the core, whether it's athletes or people in an organization, we've all got a few things. We've all got a past, and we've all got pain, and we've all got potential. Those are three things everybody has, whether you're faith-based or not. We all have a past, we all have pain, and we all have potential. And I want to be an extractor of that. I want to help people process what are some pain points in your past that are informing how you're experiencing life right now. But then what is your potential? Who are you going to be? And who have you been created to be? And what's your greatest contribution to this world? Because for every single one of those players and coaches, their greatest contribution in this world is not being a football player or being a coach. every one of them, even if they go on to have a Hall of Fame career for 20 plus years, if they live the full span of their life, they're going to be a non-competing athlete much longer than they're going to be a competing athlete. So I'm continually talking to people saying, who are you becoming? How are you being formed? What about life after sports? What about, do you want to start a family? What kind of husband do you want to be? What kind of, father do you want to be? What do you want to do in the community? So I'm able to come alongside people, and word of mouth, I think, really helps, especially for those that aren't involved in our chapel services or our Bible studies, or, when I'm around the cafeteria, we're having dinner together. I think the familiarity of seeing me on a regular basis, that really helps, especially for people who aren't, who don't want to engage with the chaplain on a spiritual level, but just are just desperate for mentorship and just desperate for growth and connection with somebody who's been there. Because I'm almost twice the age of some of these players. And that's what kind of blew me away, is these are like, they're 24, 25, 26-year-olds. And a lot of them have not had positive mentorship in their life. So that's kind of what I provide.
I think that's a really important point, because, we see athletes as being bigger than life, and we see them as this next level, human, because they're these celebrities, and they're, they do such incredible things. But at the end of the day, they're so young, we're putting so much pressure on them at such a young age. And I would challenge anybody to go back to when they're 24 or 23 and sustain some of that pressure and not have an outlet. That would be really challenging.
Lisa, that's huge. And it's so funny. I would say one of the most eye-opening things was my first year. I mean, it was like, because we watch, those of us that watch NFL football, we see all the glitz and all the fireworks and the commercials. And I think we tend to forget what they show on replays and the studio shows. The players aren't seeing any of that. They're not even experiencing that. That was created in the studio. So that's not even reality. And so we're almost lifting up these people to live up to a standard that they're not even living up to. The studio has created that standard. It's not as glamorous as NBC, CBS, ESPN has made it to be.
In professional sports, they reward that competitiveness, right? Because that's their livelihood is win, 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 win. So how do you manage as that mentor, that competitive nature? And then also, to take it one step further, how do you help counsel through performance anxiety? Because I'm sure that that's a huge element that they're facing all the time.
Absolutely. This right here is like, if I could say there's like 2 or 3 main topics, I would say this question wraps all of them together that I talk about on an annual basis. Every season it comes up. I would say the idea of performance anxiety is typically wrapped up in how do we receive affirmation? Like, what fuels us, which then leads to, what is our identity? Like, who are we? And if who we are is tied to what we do, we're going to get that warped. That's going to get messed up. And I mean, how could you not, as an athlete, when there's 75,000 people in the stadium cheering you when you're doing well, or booing you when you're not doing well, how do you not get wrapped up in your identity is what other people think about you? So we talk about this a lot. And so I would say, the performance anxiety issue, I try to keep them steady to say, hey, you are who you are despite the outcome of a game. Whether you make a play or miss a play, whether you intercept a pass or you drop a pass, miss a tackle, make a tackle, whatever it might be, your identity doesn't change. It doesn't change who you are at your core. Because if we let our outside circumstances change us, who we are at the core, it's almost like living life on a roller coaster. I'm an emotional person. If I allow my life to be dictated by my emotions, my life's going to be up and down and up and down. And so what I try to reinforce is allow your life to be based on truth. Like, what are some things, no matter if you ever step foot on that field ever again, this is true about who you are. For me, I definitely come at it from a faith perspective, but from a leadership perspective, I mean, we are who we are as individuals, despite what we do in an organization. If I could tell just a quick story that illustrates this, it was my first year as a chaplain. I remember we were 3-1 at the time. We were in first place in the AFC West, which is the division we play in. And we were playing a team that was 0-4, the New York Giants. And so they were 0-4. We were 3-1. We're in first place. They're in last place. We just came off a loss in Buffalo. And the team was kind of like, okay, we're going to get this game right. We were on national television. It was a Sunday night football game, so we're the only game playing. And so Sunday night football, Mile High Stadium, 3-1, first place Broncos, 0-4, last place Giants. And we're thinking we're gonna smoke this team. Run into the stadium. I mean, the Denver fans are going crazy, cheering like no other. It was just amazing, going into Mile High Stadium. Denver fans are crazy. And I remember that game. I'm sitting there, and the first half did not go well for us. I mean, we were down 24-0 by the end of the first half to the 0-4 Giants. And I remember like, oh my word, this is bad. And then the team is running into the tunnel. And I'll never forget this. The entire stadium starts booing the Denver Broncos. And I'm sitting there like watching this happen. And I'm thinking to myself, man, 90 minutes ago, they were cheering. But now, because these players didn't meet their expectations, the same exact people that were cheering 90 minutes ago because their expectations weren't met were now booing. And so we went on and we ended up losing that game, and that kind of started a free fall in our season. But at the time, I went to the facility on Mondays. Monday's a good day because it's a recovery day, coming in, getting treatment, talking to players, seeing how they're doing. They're watching film. So it's kind of a light day. So we have our team Bible study was on Monday mornings. And so we came in and just asking them, and I said, hey guys, did you all catch, what happened last night? And they were like, Reza, we don't want to know. Like, it was bad. We're trying to forget last night. And I said, no, I want you to remember when you ran into that stadium, what was it like? And it was, amazing. People were cheering. I said, what happened at halftime? And they said they were booing us. And that hurt, and that cuts them deeply. And I said, friends, you've got to understand that your worth cannot be in the hands of other people, because other people are fickle. They're going to change their opinion depending on whether you met their expectation or not. So the same people that cheer are going to be the same people that boo. And that's what fans do. And I'm not blaming fans for that, but we can't allow our self-worth to come from other people's opinions. So that's just a quick story to illustrate kind of the core of what we talk about a lot, about your identity and who you are. And it's not based on whether you're playing or not playing or other people's opinions.
I love that too, because from a leadership standpoint, I think we need to remind ourselves of two things. One is we're not always going to be our staff's biggest fan, or they're not going to always be our biggest fan, because, one decision might be a winning decision for everyone, and the next decision is that hard decision that people just don't understand. But it also is important to remember that everyone is human. So as from a leadership going to your people, you have to still bestow that grace on them for those mistakes and those errors, and not hinge. I think that some leaders' memories are very short when it comes to all the wins as soon as there's a loss. So I think it's an excellent point. I do love the illustration of that, because in 90 minutes, life can change. You can be on top of the world to everyone's least favorite person.
Or COVID hits and you gotta pivot and make a ton of changes in your organization's financial structure, pay structure, everything. And so I think Lisa, I think that's why value-based leadership is so important, is finding people in your organization that share not your core values as a leader, but your organization's core values. Because I think that's what keeps people engaged through the tough times, is when their values are connected. And that's how I can step into the life of somebody who isn't faith-based. And because like I said, they have all got past, pain, potential. A lot of them are married. Some of them want to be married. And so I'm also, my wife and I do pre-marriage counseling, and we officiate weddings. And when they have babies or when they lose someone in their life, I've officiated funerals and come alongside of them in these key moments. And I think it's because I'm seen as safe. And I think having safe people in your organization, they're not going to go talk to coach about this stuff. Coach doesn't want to talk to them about this stuff. But having someone like that is really helpful.
So what are some tools that you use for yourself? Because obviously if you have to be everything for everyone in these moments of triumph and also defeat, what do you do to armor yourself for those moments to work through that yourself?
I think one thing I've learned a lot recently is I'm on the Enneagram, and I'm a 3, and I always tease I'm a really good 3 because 3s are achievers and I want to be the best I can be. I would say one of the hardest things for me is slowing down and kind of just being by myself. I'm a people person. I get energy being around people. I would say one of the things that has really helped me is just some silence and solitude time, spending time with myself, breathing. I've also learned that my personal habits and my personal disciplines really influence the way that I lead and the way that, whether my tank is filled or it's drained. When my tank is drained, I got nothing to pour out, and I'm just, pulling from my past, and I'm saying things over and over that people have heard me say, and I don't have anything new to give people. And so I think for me, the greatest tool that I found I'd say really in the last 8 to 9 months, especially in this COVID season, has been silence and solitude. It's just kind of being by myself and just breathing, taking a walk has been big. So I think taking care of myself has really helped. And I've got about an hour drive going to the facility. And so I've become a podcast junkie. And I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to audiobooks when I'm driving. And so that drive, some people say, how do you live in Fort Collins? It's an hour away from Denver, and still stand driving down there, 4 times a week during the season. And honestly, now that I don't drive, I'm like, dude, I don't listen to podcasts anymore. I'm feeling dry now because I'm not listening to that stuff. So I love to learn. I love to be around other leaders. And then for me, it helps me be around leaders who aren't in my industry. I spend a lot of time with CEOs, leaders, C-suite leaders that are leading different organizations in Fort Collins and Denver that have nothing to do with faith. And I love that because I'm learning from them. They're learning from me. And I would say the last thing is I've got a mentor in my life, and that has been crucial for me. And he's not a pastor or he's not a chaplain himself. He's just someone that I trust, who's about 20 years older than me, that helps me navigate through life.
Wow. How long have you had that mentorship?
Oh man, this specific guy, he's literally mentored me since college. It's been about 20 years. And so we have a deep friendship. There've been a few times where we've been tempted to move from Fort Collins, even move down to Denver. And I think just the roots that we have and the people that we have, I would never leave. I have found having roots is better than having different opportunities. And so he's been in my life for a lot of years, and he knows me inside out. He can call me out, and he can say, Reza, you're totally, you're trying to pull the wool over my head right now. And so he knows me. And so I think having somebody like that is huge. Someone that's seen me from my college days to even now has been big time. Yeah.
The mentorship is really important. You're not the first person that we've interviewed to mention the mentorship as a leader, because it can be lonely at the top, is what they say. So you always need that other sounding board to keep you grounded.
Absolutely.
You mentioned COVID and the changes that happen. How has COVID changed how you operate, especially as a team chaplain? And in the days of COVID, we have no idea if there's even going to be a season this year. Right?
I know, how does that affect so much uncertainty? Yeah, I would say, COVID has interrupted, so much, where everything's just gone virtual. And which in some ways, just like any other industry, it can be an obstacle, or it can be something that actually propels you forward. And in some ways, COVID has actually propelled us forward. That, for us, all of our athletes, at this time, usually, when the season ends until about late March, early April, people just scatter. They go all over they travel, they go back to their homes. Very few of the players actually live in Denver year round. And so they're so I kind of completely lose touch with them. They come back for a few weeks for what's called OTAs, organized teamed activities, for about 6 weeks, kind of like a spring training type thing. And then they're off, typically all of, end of June, all of July, they're off. And so I would typically have no contact with any of the players, but because of COVID, my wife and I started an online environment for couples, and we had more people involved in that than we've ever had involved in anything that we've done individually, like me with just the guys or her with the ladies. And so we had about 26 people log on every Wednesday night. And we talked about, marriage issues. A lot of them are married. Some of them are dating seriously and want to get married. Some are engaged. So we talk about marriage issues. We talk about some, we talk through some Bible studies, things like that. And it gave us an amazing platform to talk about some of the race issues that are happening in our country, and to have that set up to where every Wednesday night we were coming together and just really expressing and just talking about how we're handling everything that's happening socially in our world. So again, that online environment was great. This season, have no idea. Most likely, the way the NFL is laying out things, I will not be able to be with the players. I won't be able to go to the facility, which again, everything's going to have to happen virtually, which again gives it's kind of a springboard to things that we've never done before, where I can now do chapels on the road, because I don't typically travel with the team, but now when they're on the road, we can log on Zoom and we can connect when they're on the road, or even I have a core group of leaders that I've been investing in for a few years on the team and say, hey, you guys, it's really time for you all to raise up as leaders and be who you're supposed to be on that team. I can't be there all the time, and it's actually a great training for them to kind of learn to fly and get out of the nest a little bit. So again, just like every other organization, it's an obstacle, but it's actually, I think, a great opportunity to grow. So
it's amazing how much COVID really has opened so many doors to things that you didn't even realize was a blind spot. Yep. Something like doing chapel on the road, that was probably just not even, it was just the weeks they weren't there, and that was that. And you would touch base, and catch up 2 weeks at a time. So it is fascinating how that is a thing,
It really is.
I want to take some time to give you a platform to talk about some of the one of the things that you're involved in. So the chart your path information that you sent over my way was very, very interesting. So I want to give you some time to speak on that and what you're up to with all of that.
Yeah, thanks so much. So, a lot of what I do is that, chaplaincy with athletes and coaches, whether it's college, Olympic, or pro athletes. But I mentioned very briefly in my story, I was kind of at this place where I had this what started as a golf ball in my stomach, and it just kind of grew and grew. And I say it was like a basketball ready to explode. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night just thinking, I got to figure out something else to do. Although I liked what I did, I loved it. It just wasn't mixing. And so I walked into this environment called the Life Plan, which is a 2-day process where I sat with a facilitator. It's based out of the Patterson Center, which is actually here in Fort Collins. And through this Life Plan, I discovered, hey, these are my core values. We walked through my past and really look through this, kind of this treasure hunt of what are the pieces of gold that are in my past that have formed who I am and inform who I can be in the future. And so we went back to even, my first experience with a friend and how that went haywire, and the abuse that I experienced in my past and how that's influenced the way that I interact with my wife or intimate relationships with friends. And so we really looked through all of that and discovered what are my core values. And that's what it came down to, is my core values did not match the church, the organization's core values. Their core values weren't bad, mine were, they just were incompatible. And so that's when I made the decision to say, it's time for me to resign. And so finding your core values, my life mission statement, setting a vision for your life, and then coming out with almost a to-do list. There's a tool within the Life Plan called the WIN, What's Important Now. And it's an old Lou Holtz, old college football coach term of discovering, now that you have all this information, we have 2 days of information we found on who you are as a person. What's important? How are we going to plan what's forward? So we discovered 6 or 7 things that I had to engage in, put a timeline to them. Who's holding me accountable? What do I want the outcome to be when I experience that or when I achieve that? And so that was life-changing for me, that Life Plan. And so I went and got certified through the Patterson Center to facilitate life plans for people. And then there's a portion of that also that's connected to organizations. And so it's called a StratOp, a strategic operations. And so we take the same type of tools where you discover your core values, your mission, for an organization, it's what products are you engaging? How is your culture in your organization? it takes 3 days. So a life plan is 2 days for an individual, or we also do marriage plans for couples. So it's a 2-day process where you go through with a husband and wife and discover, what is your, who are you going to be as a couple? And that's been really powerful for couples who are coming up on the empty nest years, or couples that are kind of in the midst of raising kids in elementary school and seeing, man, I've only got about 10, maybe 12, 13 years of kids in the house. How do we want to intentionally live our life? And so we do the life plans, we do couples plans, but then the StratOps is something we've been engaging with organizations as well. And I love being in those kinds of spaces and really working with organizations, but then the life plan, helping people discover that, you have been designed for something great and your past is able to inform your future. So Chart Your Path is an organization my wife and I lead. chartyourpath.co for Colorado is what the website is. And there's the basic information for the life plan, and the StratOp is found there. So we love facilitating that. And I do about, 2 to 3 life plans a week. 2 to 3 life plans a month. And during the football season, obviously that's consolidated. But this year with COVID, who knows what it's going to be like. So that's been a lot of fun.
Okay, great. Well, hey, thank you again for your time today. Conversations with you are so easy. So thank you for your time and your expertise in it. And for those of you watching, if you have any questions about Chart Your Path, we're going to link to it below. So you can just go directly to the website and ask for some more information. For those of you watching, click subscribe if you'd like some more information about leadership. We do a podcast once a week. And Reza, I just want to say thank you again for your time.
Lisa, this has been fun. I look forward to doing more projects, hopefully in the future.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.